Hi everyone, welcome to the Mapping Inspirational Women podcast. For new friends, welcome to it. For old friends, welcome back. And today I'm here with Katie. I'm going to hit Katie with a starter question. Where is your favorite place, Katie? Or where are your favorite
Oh,
places?
such a great question. But a really easy answer for me today. I think my favourite place in the whole world, I'm really lucky, is there is a little wood that is really close to where I live. I can just kind of walk there with my dog, and it is absolutely my favourite place. I find it really restorative, whatever the weather's doing, even if it's raining, the kind of patter of rain on the leaves of the trees is great. The squish of mud underfoot is great. If it's a lovely sunny day, that kind of dappled sunlight that you get. And I think it's a particularly precious place to me because it's a little bit of an unknown space. Like if you're not local, you don't necessarily know it exists. And it's also um, kind of a regenerated landscape. I live in an interesting kind of area where there's a lot of kind of former heavy industry. But because of the way it kind of developed a bit sporadically, there were these green spaces left between. And since the kind of collapse of that heavy industry, that green has regenerated. So this woodland, some of it was never kind of touched, but some of it, there's like the remains of old mining kind of equipment and sites that you find within the wood, sort of like these rusted bits of metal that you can come across, and like brickworks and bits of rails that were running with kind of trains and things like that. So I really love it because of it's also that reminder that things change, they will change, and the natural world can recover from quite significant damage sometimes, and to just be mindful of that kind of that process, that even things that seem very like big and real and concrete, given enough time, everything changes. So that's my favorite place, the wood round the corner, for all those slightly pretentious reasons.
But that's so nice. Wow. Um, can you tell us a bit about yourself as well? Like about this unknown corner,
Sure.
know a bit about you.
Sure. So I'm Katie, technically Dr. Katie Hall. I work for Esri UK. I'm the schools manager there. What that means is that I look after all of the schools that are using ArcGIS online technology. So that's a free JS tool that absolutely any school can get access to. And a big part of my job is just recognizing that even when something is free, that doesn't actually mean it's necessarily accessible to people. If you've never used it before, you don't know what to do with it, you need kind of a bit of help and guidance. I'm loving that my role is often more now about platforming other people's best practice. So not just me and my lovely teammate Dave talking all the time, but us talking to other people and getting them to talk to people about the fun stuff that they do with it. So can talk for ages about that aspect of kind of what I do right now, and how much I enjoy that. And before I did that, I was a geography teacher. And before I was a geography teacher, I was an archaeologist.
It's so interesting because I was listening to another geography and coffee and geography podcast, and we were talking about how archaeology and history and geography is putting together, and in the end, you return to the geography side of it, and how this has in kind of like this journey has enabled to see more of geography actually. And that's
Yeah,
also why I get to
definitely.
know you. Last year, when I was
Yeah.
starting to do the Mapping Inspirational Women initiatives, someone recommended me to say that you need to see what Dr. Katie Hall have been doing. I'm like, oh, really? Then I go, and it happened to be at the GA conference around the same time. That went there to your session where, like you said, talk about how to use GIS as a platform, how to help teachers to understand what's already there. At point, I think it's kind of like pointing into the direction that how these could be used as a potential in educational scenarios. And I've always been looking forward, like maybe we could collaborate together. But at that time, I was quite busy with my thesis, and now Yeah, it's technically Dr. Hermione Meow now, so I could also say I'm
Yeah.
working on this. The one my postdoc is actually about how I develop the more inclusive geographies to make it with climate change education of this. I'm like, oh my god, I got the opportunity to talk to Katie about this. Yeah,
And it was such a pleasure at GA this year to kind of get the first opportunity to work with you just on a little mapping kind of project. But you know, likewise, what you're doing and what you're researching and kind of like taking forward is really exciting. So it's a real pleasure for me to connect with you as well. Absolutely, and like to be involved in this and the work that you're doing. I
yeah.
think it's very kind of meaningful and necessary.
Yeah. So I actually we always have a tradition like a bit of like time traveling. So that's why I have this space and a kind of like a background with me. So now if we go time traveling a little bit, going back to the past, who are the three women that you want to meet again because they have inspired you in entering this career or kind of to become you today? Who are the
Yeah.
three influential women that
The
inspire
three people from my past. I think the first one that I have to talk about is a very personal connection, and that is my grandmother. Um, she was kind of one of that first generation of working women, if that makes sense. And like actually, people have been working kind of in my family for a long time, you know, in service or kind of like for other people or in that kind of domestic realm. But my nan was, I believe, the first woman ambulance driver in the West Midlands. So it was during the Second World War when women were kind of allowed into some of those professions that traditionally had only been held by men. And my grandmother was an excellent driver. Her father had been a delivery driver and had taught her to drive. And so she was very confident to go and do it. And she was kind of tall, like I am, and so strong, and could demonstrate that she could lift and carry patients. And so she applied to become an ambulance driver, and that's what she did throughout the war. You know, quite a dangerous profession, kind of driving in blackout, going to kind of the aftermath of incidences, you know, even things being bombed out and casualties that you might have to kind of recover from that kind of situation. But also, I think, a very exciting time for a young woman to be able to kind of enter that world and to make a difference. And why I think she was particularly inspirational to me was after the war, when a lot of women were asked to leave those roles because men returning from combat, you know, were expecting to come back to them. She made that bold decision to ask to stay, and she had to have kind of a special letter of permission written from, you know, her manager at that time. And my mom still has, I think, those documents like under lock and key somewhere where they kind of gave that reference and said, "Yep, you know, she's excellent. We want her to continue working with us." And so she didn't have to sort of quit like, immediately after the conflict, but she was able to kind of continue doing that for many years after. And yeah, so that kind of boldness to challenge the norm and to put yourself forward and to do something kind of outside of the realm of, you know, the traditional what you're allowed to do has always inspired me, I think, to take that kind of attitude forward and apply that and just put yourself forward for it and try it, you know. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, it recalls to me like of mine and my grandma as well. The my parents they went to Shanghai, and I was left behind in a village that I stayed with my
Yeah,
grandmother on my mother's side as well. And so there was a time I was doing my homework, and my grandma
yeah.
sit next to me, not watching me, but doing her kind of like homework because she's a
Mm.
princess. She want to learn about what it is like, and she will use my dictionary as well to know how to pronounce that word. So it's not just
Oh, how fantastic.
learning as well. She's learning something for her belief. So I think it's kind of a recalls to me. Like I think it's about seeing them, not just being a kind of grandmother or a mothering figure, but seeing about them in what they want to do. That's really changed the way from
A
you.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's that it gives you that confidence to try in the first place. And even if you try and fail, because often that was their experience too, but to kind of keep going and to know that you have that kind of support. And I guess almost to know that in your very roots, there's that tenacity. There's that like, no, I'm going to do this. Like, and you're like, well, you know, that's in me. I can't let that down. I've got to kind of carry that forward.
Yeah. So if we keep moving after seeing your grandma, after seeing your nan, who's the next person we're going to visit in your past?
I think the next person that we're going to visit is Professor Nicola Walsh, who was my kind of initial teacher training course leader, like the kind of leader of the PGCE geography at Cambridge University at that point in my life. Because I'd done archaeology, I'd kind of done my PhD in archaeology, and for a very long time I'd assumed that was kind of the career that I was going to have and the direction that I was moving in. And over the kind of sort of end stages of writing up my thesis and that part of kind of finishing my studies, I really realized that the teaching aspect of my PhD,
Yeah,
I'd absolutely loved, and that I wanted to move more in that direction, you know, more than kind of trying to stay within that research environment. But it was a big change. And a different thing than I'd been imagining, kind of in the previous decade for a long time. So I was very nervous, kind of stepping into that world. And Nicola was just the most incredible mentor. She was a kind of very like gentle with it, but would not just let you kind of sit and be nervous. She really saw everybody in that room, I felt very clearly, but compassionately, kindly, trying to kind of work out, you know, what it is that you needed, what your next opportunity would be. And it was just incredibly kind of healing to that part of my ego that had been bruised by quite a tough kind of a PhD experience. And it was the first time that I really kind of encountered that mentor figure that really does seem to have your best interests at heart. So, you know, it's not what's in it for them. It's very much that, like, you know, I think you're great and I want to help you get to where you want to go. Um, and actually, Nicola did put me where I want to go. I wouldn't be doing the job that I'm doing now. I wouldn't be having the experiences that I've had now without her, and without her kind of just gentle persuasion, a kind of just so sort of subtly done. I never felt like pushed or prodded into doing anything, but also, you know, I felt really motivated. Um, and yeah, just enormous gratitude to Nicola, who I think absolutely epitomizes that kind of fantastic mentor, and somebody who, even with kind of sometimes like very small acts, actually has just this enormously profound influence on somebody's life trajectory.
amazing. That's so nice to hear all of this, and it's hard to imagine that Dr. Katie Ho had a difficult time in the ITE, but it was so
I know.
to have.
Absolutely did, like, and would, yeah, like would talk happily to people about that, and would say to anybody that's in that situation out there right now, like, it does get better.
Better. And it's always so nice to have someone more experienced as a mentor and helping you. I still recall last year doing the Mapping Inspirational Women, I want to do mapping feminist approaches to climate change education. But at that time, I was just a PhD student trying to finish up my thesis, and my thesis only have a small part about climate change
Hmm.
education. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So my supervisor, Mark's very active on Twitter, and he said, why don't you put on Twitter and you can add the leading scholar you want to add? I'm like, can I?
Hmm.
He said, you can. And then that's how I got contact with Professor Lizzie Rush,
Hmm.
and who's now my postdoc mentor to do the inclusive
Incredible.
geography. So it's kind of like just sometimes you just need a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of push.
Yeah,
Do it.
you need
Yeah.
just need that wiser head that says, yeah, of course you can do that. Like, if you can't give yourself permission, that person that gives you the permission then
Yeah.
to kind of take that step
Yeah.
is absolutely vital. And it's just having seen somebody do that for me as well, it really inspired. I really want to be that for,
Yeah.
you know, people that are kind of following after me. It's that like the fact that it's just so much better when you work together collaboratively, I find. And there's a lot of fields that you can find yourself in, and a lot of kind of professional context where it can feel quite competitive and where people are kind of like, looking what you're
Yeah,
doing because
yeah,
they want to stay ahead. And I just love people that are able to build those environments where it's not competitive, it's collaborative. We're all working to push each other forward and platform each other. Yeah.
yeah, so nice.
I guess I owe one more, don't I? And one more person. This is not somebody who I've really ever kind of properly met, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. This is very much somebody who has inspired me. And there's a GA link here actually as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it is Kate Rayworth. I think I'm saying her surname correctly. She's the author of Donut Economics. And she was the keynote speaker at a Geographical Association conference a few years ago now. I'm pretty sure it was not the Manchester one just gone, but the Manchester one
Previous.
before that. And like her entire kind of keynote was very, very inspiring. All of her kind of economics work, but the bit that kind of genuinely sort of blew my mind, she made a real effort at the start of her talk to talk about her life's journey and how she'd got to that lecture theatre, essentially, into that role that she was in, as a kind of professor of economics. And she was really honest about the personal side of her life, and in particular about her decision to kind of like get married, start a family, and bring that aspect of kind of like herself into into the world. And she talked kind of, well, not for very long, but really kind of articulately about how that personal side of her influenced her professional side. And up until that point in my existence, I think I had tried to often make a conscious effort to really separate those. And the idea had kind of like lodged itself in my head that your personal is almost unprofessional, and then it can kind of negatively impact on the work that you're trying to do. And so, yeah, like Kate's talk there just sort of knocked the scales from my eyes, and I realized, oh wow, your personal life, whatever it is, whatever you're kind of bringing there's not one right way to do that, but whatever it is, you can bring that into your professional context to make you better at what you do professionally, to give you new eyes that you see things through, to kind of, yeah, like change that perspective from being quite narrow and myopic to so much broader. And that was genuinely, such a small thing, like a tiny seed that was planted, but it has just gone on and on and on in the things that I've done, the things that I've been motivated to try and do, and the approaches that I've brought into my professional work, and also back the other way, kind of from the professional sphere and kind
The
of
cycle.
into my private and domestic life as well. Yeah. So I'm always incredibly grateful, and it's another thing that I try and do a little bit as well. Like that talk that she did at the start, who I am and how I got here. I think, particularly professional women, it's really important to hear that. It's so inspiring for those kind of people who are that stage or two behind in their career that are sat in the audience. And it really does, again, sometimes give people confidence to start something.
Yeah, I think that's why now I put on first gen in my Twitter, because I want people to know it is possible. It's going to be difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but it is possible. Like similarly, last I think in May, so I was invited to do a salon to talk about my own journey to become a doctor. It's not how I think how great I am. It's just to show that there's a lot of challenges, especially for first generation students, even
Yeah,
for first generation students who take scholarship to study abroad. It's not going to be easy, but this is possible for
yeah,
me, and this could be possible for other
yeah,
people as well. I will try my best to tell you what are the challenges I faced, what are the possible kind of like help you could get, and to know that the support network you could build for yourself, which shouldn't be just limited to people
mm-hmm.
in your family or just people in your classmates. Like you said, the keynote speaker, or even the books
Mm-hmm.
you want to write, or even the mentor like in your course. So there are all different ways that you could find inspiration, find little things to keep you going. And I guess you have someone
Absolutely.
else.
And what you're doing,
Yeah.
like,
And
you
this
know,
fascinating
it's
discussion.
building just that bigger network.
Are there anyone in the past you particularly want to visit and tell them how grateful you are that they have helped you?
Anyone else apart from those three? Oh, there's so many people that I would
But there's
kind of go
limited
back and visit.
time. So limited
Yeah.
time. So we just mentioned these three and we come to the present. Come back to you,
Okay.
to what you are doing. You briefly talked about what you are doing with providing school resources, making more accessible for teachers and educators. So I want to know more about what are the keywords you'd use to describe your work and yourself in this kind of like
Mhm.
career, and who are the people that you have been collaborating with, and what keeps you going
Mhm.
in this brilliant career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the keywords that I hope other people would use to describe me are collaborative. I think that that is something that's really important to me. Um, and I think challenging, not necessarily that I myself personally am challenging. I try not to be like too irritating. I'm sure I can be sometimes, but I think I have a little I like to pick at what is and see what could be, and I kind of want to give other people that option as well. That we don't have to take things as a given. I think that's it's something I think I mentioned on Kit's podcast as well. But this kind of the world is not just as it's been received and it has to stay that way. You can chip away at the parts of it that don't sit right, that don't include people that should be at the table, that aren't working well for everybody. And so those are the kind of qualities professionally, to collaborate and to challenge, that I try and embody at all times as best I can. And in terms of who I'm working with to do that, so I've already mentioned I've got a fantastic team that I'm part of at Esri UK. So there's Dave, who's the other half of the schools team, and there's my lovely colleagues Addie and Benny, and there's also kind of many more colleagues within Esri UK. Too many to kind of mention individually, but I'm absolutely blessed to kind of work in an environment where I can take problems to them, whether that's technical or kind of more strategic. I have those opportunities for conversations. And particularly, I think working with Dave, where we get to run sessions kind of in parallel together and kind of bounce off of one another. I think we become a bit of an ant and dec double act, some people refer to us as. And
Oh,
again, that's something. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I went through quite a lot of your presentations, and it's kind of not like a presentation, it's like a show that see how you interact with each other and engage with audience. It's always quite, it's not like some of these would be, so boring, but that one, like, I'm very looking forward to it, to see what they will.
Oh, I'm so glad. And then I think it's like that for us as well. It's a genuine pleasure to kind of go to work and run those kind of sessions. But again, it's something I think I would have been quite scared of in my earlier career. I would have worried that that it looked unprofessional, or that like I was kind of like not advancing myself because we were working in parallel together. And actually, I think it's the opposite. It's developed me so much professionally, and I think it's enriched the kind of content that we deliver. So there's that kind of like very close collaboration, within my work team. But the way that my team approaches what we have to do as well, because we're small, there's only sort of two of us running schools and 22,000 schools out there that we've got to reach. We have to take a kind of partnership and collaboration approach to our work. And it's something that my former manager, Jason, who is another fantastic mentor, that I could talk about another time. But he really sort of stressed the value of that collaboration and kind of partnership as well. So we work with GA and kind of different folks from the GA. We work with the Royal Geographical Society an awful lot as well. So hi to Simon from the team there that does a lot of work with us. But beyond that as well, sort of another partnership I'm kind of really proud of at the moment is our work with Akama. So this is a scholarship fund essentially. We've been running the geospatial scholarship for a little while, and before we were partnered with Black geographers who are helping us do that. Akama are helping us kind of take things forward at the moment by connecting kind of with scholars from marginalised backgrounds that are looking to work in the geospatial sector, and providing them access to funding where they need it, but also, we're really looking to take it into that broader mentorship, careers advice, CV workshops, just those little things where sort of exactly what you were saying earlier about if you don't have that network, or if your network is your family and your first gen and nobody else has any experience of kind of this academic world or this professional world that you're trying to break into, we're trying to just give people that platform. If you don't know the answer and your network doesn't know the answer, come and ask us, and we'll ask our network and we'll find that answer for you and make sure that you have that help that other people just have in that immediate network. So that whole piece of work, and sort of the origins of that, I'm really proud of, and just want to keep taking forward and connecting with kind of more and more people to just build that network for folks. And yeah, kind of looking to the future, sort of looking to build more of these kind of networks. So I've had the good fortune to be involved in the National Education Nature Park project. That is a huge collaborative endeavour, with so many different organisations involved in it. Department for Education that are at the centre of it, the Natural History Museum and the Royal Horticultural Society, who are the kind of the big lead education partners on it, but lots of other educational organisations involved as well. People like the IGS are in there, and we're there as the geospatial partner, kind of supporting with the tools to actually get out there and kind of measure habitat and habitat change and improvement, hopefully, as we move through the programme. So those are some of the kind of collaborations that we're involved with at the moment.
It sounds so cool, and I guess it's not just what is going on now. It's also going to be continuing. I guess this endeavor going to flourish and thrive, and so that's moved very well to the possible futures that would yeah with imaginary young people or people like you or real people that you already have, like with someone a bit younger than you, or like maybe not that younger but then newer to the field that you're working in.
Yeah, so kind of it's I think the younger me probably wouldn't have listened because they were a bit more of a cynic than the older me is. So I'm going to say this is addressed to kind of real people out there now who are hopefully a little bit less cynical than the real younger me was. And I think this is just to encourage them, as we've already said, really to build those networks, and to just say hi, or even if you can't bring yourself to kind of say hi to somebody, to follow them on Twitter, to engage even in that potentially more passive way in the first instance. That really the biggest boundary is often the one that's in your head. It's often you that's kind of preemptively saying no to things rather than anybody else out there. And ultimately, right, those people, if they're going to say no, they'll say no anyway. So you may as well say yes. You just say yes yourself, because like at some point when you've got to stop, somebody will say, that's enough. I say no now. So don't make you that first person that says no. You just say yes to things. And this is almost a cliche now, but another kind of piece of advice that helps me a lot is do it anyway, do it scared. Even if you're really nervous about doing it, just do it anyway, do it scared. Because sometimes that little bit of adrenaline is helpful. And again, like just do it scared. It's okay. You'll get through it. And often in that doing it scared the first time, the next time you'll be less nervous. And I think if you do it scared, you also get really good at spotting when other people are scared as well. And when you're less scared, you can be that person that puts the hand out and says, hey, I've got you. Right, we'll do this together. Scared together. That's how we'll do it. And that has just been very freeing for me, rather than me saying, I can't do that, I'm not going to be good enough. Like, do it anyway, do it scared.
I really like this. Yeah, that's a Katie Ho. Quote Dr. Katie Ho. Do it anyway, do it scared.
I'm definitely not the first person to say that.
I heard
It's
that.
out there in the wider social media, but I find it so valuable.
So I know from we always try to bring in the connections with people we have been interviewed and we're interviewing now in Mapping Inspirational Podcast. I know you
Mhm.
particularly like that question, so I'm going to ask you this question as time is
Yeah.
running. As a human being, what would you like your legacy to be? So how would you want to be remembered in terms of the work you are doing, in terms of the profession?
It's such a good question, I think, because there's a little bit of ego in it. You know, how do you want to be remembered? What's the mark that you want to make upon the world? Um, but I think it's an important thing to ask yourself and to reflect on as you're moving through life. Like right now, you know, what's this impact going to be? How in 5, 10, 50 years might people think of this? And I think that's really important for two reasons. Because I think sometimes you can worry too much about legacy and worry about that future, and actually you just need to get on and do stuff. But that longer term kind of legacy, I guess, is what I'm going to try and answer. And for me personally, it's very linked to my job and what I do, and it is that I really would like my legacy to have been that I've brought geospatial technology to more people, that more people know what GIS is, they understand how revolutionary it can be in terms of you know, looking at the world and improving it. Our teams kind of reason d'etre, and actually Esri UK is kind of like reason for existing. You know, if you go and ask our MD or kind of our company owners, they can tell you that it is kind of to improve things for the environment and for society. That is something that is genuinely kind of a core value, and it's one that I share. So as part of that bigger kind of collaborative endeavor in getting to work with all the people that I do within my company and with all the people that it connects with, that's what I hope that my legacy would be, that we've improved things for the environment and for society, that the world's just a little bit better because of the work that we've done together.
And the final thing we ask every time when people visit, we always try to see if we could connect a kind of like a bridge to connect different time is, can you leave a question for the future guests at Mapping Inspirational Women podcast?
Yeah. I was going to sort of ask a question. I'm just trying to think of the best way to sort of phrase it as a question now. But I guess I'm always really interested in that kind of like the moments where you realize that something you thought was like a negative about you, or something that made you different or not quite fit, when you sort of realize that was a superpower. You know, so when what's the first time where you sort of realized an aspect of yourself that you'd not not liked before was actually something really valuable, that was going to help you in your future?
Such a good question. Finding a way to see it. Yeah. Because reminds me a bit of my thesis because I've always been like so ashamed, so kind of like embarrassed or feeling like this is shortcoming that I couldn't write the way like native English speakers write. But then
Mhm.
I forgot kind of like the moment I realized it, it's like, oh no, I would never be as good as them. Then gradually at the near the end of it, my thoughts bit changed. I can I'm sitting in this in-betweenness of two languages, English and Chinese.
Yes.
I'm building bridges to understand these two languages. If my English is not as perfect as some English speakers, it is reasonable because I'm not them. And
Yeah, no, you have this entirely different perspective, absolutely, and you know, this intensely valuable one as somebody that is kind of translating between and um able to, like one of my um kind of friends was by, to be honest, almost trilingual when I was doing my PhD, and sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, English doesn't have a word for this, but in French the concept is this," and it was like confronting that the limits of your language sometimes almost like corral your thoughts. So you're absolutely right. It's not no way a deficit to be fluent in kind of two languages. You've just broadened the amount of thinking that you're able to do because you've got a whole other language to do some thinking in when one of them isn't kind of big enough for the sort of thoughts that you want to have. But that's exactly it, isn't it? You spend so long being like, oh no, I'm not good enough at this, and there's always that moment where you're like, wait a second, this is backwards. This isn't a deficit at all. This is a strength.
And the thing is, it's quite fun. It's kind of in personal life because for me, when in Chinese, he is ta, she is ta, and it is also ta. So every time when I translate in my mind, and like people like you got it wrong, I'm like it's because my translation system is not, I want to offend people, because in Chinese all the pronunciation is the same, and there's
Mhm.
no this kind of like, I didn't feel like there's such a strict kind of like differentiation by this. But of course gradually I pick up on this, but I want to also let people know maybe in other language they are not that different, they are similar
Yeah.
things in together. No matter what kind of your identity, what it is like, we could all still communicate. And yeah, so these are small things I've been going through with all these translation things. Thank you so much for your time today. I'll put on this question and hopefully someone in the future will answer it as well.
Oh, I hope so. And thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you.